pulled out the top three: Tides Foundation, Indivisible, and then the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. This is another big one that has contributed to the No Kings movement. When you go over back to this page, and see right there, ACLU. And these guys also have received lots and lots of money from the George Soros Foundation. So you dig down to the root of this. This is very much a George Soros funded movement. And so my message to the American people is, if you are part of the No Kings movement, you are working with exactly what you're told you're fighting against, which is the rich and powerful elite. Because what they're saying is, we're sick of the rich elite running everything. And you're doing it. You're part of that, because what you're doing is literally funded by the rich elite left class.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. This is not organic. This is not natural.
Crazy. This is the image. So it's like this image of Donald Trump with the crown on, with the X of the crown. It's just too close to, and then No Kings. It's too close to a violent threat. Like that's what it seems like to me. So I don't like the imagery, but they say this flag doesn't belong to President Trump. It belongs to us. We're not watching history happen. We're making it. Here's what I believe is happening, because they're talking about rejecting authoritarianism, show the world what democracy really looks like, but they are not disregarding what happened in LA. They're using that to fuel the fires of this protest, this march, this nationwide event on June 14th. And I'm going to turn it over to y'all in a second. But in my opinion, this is not we the people of the United States of America. This is another form of king. That's what I'm seeing right here. And it's, we're king, and we're going to use the people, the elites that are behind this, to get what we want.
I agree. I think there's a 0% chance this is We the People movement. Approximately 0%. This is like the covert influence playbook. I mean, it's exactly what we're seeing. We've seen it time and time again. This is absolutely totally coordinated and paid for, and that's exactly what it is.
The amount of, the evidence that we've had for like paid agitators and that sort of thing in the past, it's really interesting because it even points to I do think the organization will probably have a lot of, deniability unless, of course, they're able to link funds back to very specific places.
There's video evidence of one of the rioters who they stopped and they interviewed him. And they said, "Why are you here?" And he said, "Well, we're here to overthrow capitalism, and we want to make this nation a socialist nation." And he said, and they're like, "Are you an illegal immigrant?" And he said, "Oh yeah, definitely illegal immigrant."
Right.
And it's like, okay, like stating it very plainly.
This is really more of a grand coordinated thing where, you hear people say things that are just completely out of touch with reality, like what about Trump and about all these things. But that's to give the headline, and then the mainstream media just runs with it. Like that's exactly what happens.
Sometimes as a society, we rely a little bit too heavily on we need exact proof, and sometimes the proof is just the fruit that you see.
Exactly.
When people are doing illegal things, do you think you're going to find the proof for that? The whole point behind executing something illegally is to not get caught and therefore have no proof and to cover your tracks. And so what we're watching is illegal things and the fruit of those illegal things coming out. And now we can just kind of point to one thing like, well, I saw this happen with my own eyes and now this is happening. And that seems like a pretty logical deduction in my opinion.
Yeah. So why June 14th? I want to move on to this because this is kind of important. So this is the reason why. It's not random. It's not a random date. They've been planning it for a while because June 14th is Flag Day. So if you actually go on the website and read it, it says Flag Day. Also, Donald Trump wants tanks in the street and a made-for-TV display of dominance for his birthday. That's what they put on the website. A spectacle meant to look like strength. But real power isn't staged in Washington. It rises up everywhere else. So again, sounds like very violent language. Real power isn't staged in Washington. It rises up everywhere else. And then this is a quote from it, from the site. Instead of allowing this birthday parade to be the center of gravity, we will make action everywhere else the story of America that day. People coming together in communities across the country to reject strongman politics and corruption. And the crazy thing about it is you can look at some of obviously they're trying to describe the ICE raids. They're trying to describe, but Donald Trump is just following the law of the land, right? He's just doing what the legislation actually says. These are the people that are behind it actually on the website. So I want to actually go, you can just click on partners here on the website. These are the ones that have their faces on the site. Okay, so all of these organizations, and a lot of these are being funded by government funds, government money. A lot of these organizations are behind, or at least get some funding from that.
Not
And
all
so-
the USAID money has run out yet. I just want to throw that comment. I know Trump tried to shut down USAID, but a lot of that money is kind of still floating out there. So we'll see how many of these organizations stick around once all of that money is like completely cut off.
You know, I just am always impressed, and I shouldn't be, but with the left's ability, the left's and the elite's ability to name things in a noble sounding way that is just doing the exact opposite. I mean, that is like the playbook, and I don't know why conservatives are not able to do that, because they have, if for actual noble things, to name them noble thing, like according to what it really is. But like they have the Inflation Reduction Act, which just adds a bunch to the debt. They have the For the People Act, which sounds like pro-democracy, anti-corruption, but actually just centralizes power and federalizes elections, and it does the opposite. We have the Respect for Marriage Act, which just redefines marriage and actually is the Disrespect for Marriage Act. I mean, there's Build Back Better, which was not even an infrastructure bill. Like, they're all this garbage.
So the New York Post, earlier I mentioned Chirla, and that's one of the organizations that the investigation's been launched into, which, because there's evidence linking them to actually funding some of the stuff that's happening in LA. Another organization that the New York Post specifically linked to those face masks, those boxes of face masks we saw earlier. New York Post specifically linked them with evidence to an organization called Operation Healthy Hearts. So I love that you just mentioned like how it sounds great, right? The name Operation Healthy Hearts.
Nothing.
And it's like, no, it's not. It's a criminal organization now. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah, it means nothing. Like,
it sounds great. And they're, if you go on their website, I went and did a little research on their website, and it's like, it looks like a good organization. It looks like they're doing good things, but obviously the money is being funneled through to do stuff that shouldn't be done.
Operation Heart of Darkness.
Yeah.
They could relabel the name. That would be helpful for everybody.
Let's get into who are some of the specific elites that could be behind this. So I want to dive into this. Doug, I know you've got some info. I've got a little bit.
I've got a ton of stuff to go over. So
yeah, go for it.
Let's jump into that, and I'll try to get through it a little bit quicker. We'll see. But so one of the biggest points that I wanted to make with this was the concept behind this No Kings movement is that it is a grassroots organic uprising, and that's what they're pushing all over the place. They're saying that this is the people rising up. This is America rising up against tyranny, against Donald Trump, right? And I wanted to make some points about how that is absolutely the opposite of the case. And we've kind of covered that a little bit, but I've got some extra things to point out here. Number one, coming from a website kind of background where I understand how all this stuff works, and this is a basic concept. You're going to recognize really quickly when you start going through all this stuff that this is a very well-funded movement and program. So Indivisible is like the overarching name of a couple different groups, right? They are 100% behind this No Kings. They are helping fund it, right? When you just go through and you look at some of these websites, understand that, number one, these websites cost money, not only to make, but to run and to employ people to monitor, right? This is a lot of stuff. So I'm just going to go through a couple of these are really nice, big websites that have a lot going on with them, okay? You don't have a grassroots organic movement that has websites that are this nice and this well put together in general. That's just not typically a thing. This is the Indivisible Project, their open secrets. So this is their contributions out, and I'm not sure exactly where that goes, to be honest. But here's another example of their websites. This is No King's Day of Action, right? So here we have evidence that the Indivisible organization is fully behind the No Kings, which is the website that Troy was sharing earlier, which, once again, look at that website. It's beautiful. It's executed really, really well.
They've got their marketing down. Yeah,
they do. And so what's really crazy about this is this is the same one that Troy was at earlier. The amount of information and different websites connected through all this just proves how much money is funneling into this project. And this money isn't coming from the $5 that John down the street donated because he voted for Biden last term. You know what I mean? It's it doesn't build up like that. This is more than just your regular donations. And these are websites that are packed full of information on how to protest, where to protest, what to do about it, where to get the stuff, which, by the way, there are allowances. Like, you can literally get some of this stuff tax deducted. You can get money for some of it if you fill out the right forms on here, that they will pay for you to go do this. And not only that, but that's in addition to, like I saw earlier, there was some ads running on Craigslist for paying people to disrupt, is what it basically was. Like, actors, like they're saying, like, strong, and it was like thousands of dollars. They're like, we want you out here on this day to make sure that you can handle the situation. The way they word it is very careful, of course, but there's a lot of evidence that this is not really organic at all. And I think that that's one of my biggest tips with it, is because what's happening is we are being told that this is an organic movement and that this is the people uprising, right? Which makes it appear as though this is what the people want for America, which the reality is this is actually more like a handful of rich people behind the scenes wanting a change. They want the regime change. I'm sure that there are people in America who do want a regime change, but not these people. They're not the kind of people who have the time and the resources to go create a riot in the streets, right? And just another example of like all the many things that they have. Like, this is just more material, more resources that you can go find to be a part of this whole uprising, quote unquote. Another website, 50 protests, 50 states, one day. This is all in reference to the June 14th day that they want to resist and uprise and all that. So in here, you can find a bunch of different like you see planning template, sample safety plan, media advisory. This is all guidance on how to execute a protest to the utmost with the least amount of consequence, basically. Wow. Is what a lot of these come down to. Campaigning guides for, so these start to get more and more degrees away from the No Kings, but this is all resources that are being used for the No Kings. So it's very tricky, because you can't, like, if you were to just look at this one website, you'd be like, what does that have to do with anything? But this is like my rabbit trail of coming, like starting with No Kings and going through the process of, oh, here's more resources. Oh, here's more resources. Okay. So this is just crazy. Like, honestly, conservatives don't do this. This isn't a thing. Like, I have never seen anything like this on the conservative side. And if they do, I'd like to see it, And then I found another, here's one I want to point out. This is one of the resources, right?
Conflict is good.
Conflict is good. So they're not saying be violent, but they're suggesting
activism is about making trouble.
I was about to read that. Activism is about making trouble. Wow. Okay.
There was a really particular.
Oh my gosh! Those empowered do not listen to reason, information, or moral arguments.
This is like some serious manifesto.
That's a little bit past the line there. That's not really.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So the degree to which, right, we're right here. The degree to which you can make trouble can vary from changing the system from the inside, for example, by going into politics, to blowing up pipelines.
Interesting example there.
Isn't that like, why, if that's not your intention, why would you use that as an example, right? This is just one example of all this stuff that's packed in behind this movement. Okay. Here is. A lot of our viewers might have already seen some of this, actually. You can basically say that No Kings is indivisible, okay? At this point, like, they're one and the same. They're so intertwined. And these guys are behind the Indivisible organization. Whoa. They've been doing this for a while.
The co-founders of Indivisible hold online training session, instruct radical supporters behind Tesla attacks how to avoid federal snooping.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
In this, they actually did I think it was a Zoom or anyway, a video conference where they talked about how you can like skirt around legal monitoring of your activities, right? Which kind of makes sense. But these guys are millionaires and they're behind this. So, their money is going right into it.
How did all these communists make all their money? That's what I want to know.
Well, they do exactly They do exactly what they have criticized Trump for doing, basically. They have business ventures, they have their donations, they pay almost no taxes, they know how to get around all of it. And it's not loopholes either, it's legal stuff for the most part. But they understand how to invest so that they can keep investing and keep making more money. And there is a process behind it. It just takes a while to make it happen.
I mean, once you get to a point where you can live off of 5% of your investments, then you can live off 5% of the investments, and then the investments grow themselves. Like, I mean, if that's what it is, and people, you can invest in the market, you can invest in companies, you can invest in all real estate, all kinds of things. But once there's a certain level, it's just multiplying.
Yeah. And you create foundations or programs or organizations that are nonprofit, and then you can write it off, and then you get more money from that write-off, and then you can just keep funneling it into other.
Yeah.
What you just showed is illegal. Like what they were doing, like helping people destroy Tesla vehicles without getting caught, without getting monitored. I mean, that's illegal. That's directly tied.
But there's gray areas.
Directly tied to that's crazy.
Yeah, we got a couple more levels deeper here. So here's a little information on the Indivisible Project. Notice how much revenue they make right here. That I believe that's what 12,565,000, right? Yeah, and expenses like for I don't even
12,700,000.
These are large. Well, because it's good for a business to
show a loss.
To show a loss, because then they can write it off.
That's good.
But, I
bet the CEO or whatever, they got paid pretty well though.
Well, yeah, those two. What was their name? Ezra, the founders. These guys
got paid pretty well.
Oh yeah, and they have actually gotten in a lot of trouble for that before. People have noticed that they have quite the income for running a supposed nonprofit. This article ties these two, an Indivisible group, directly to shock of all shocks, George Soros. I mean, I hate to be like the typical conservative George Soros is the boogeyman, but he really is. We just got to call a spade at some point. Like, he really is behind this. Nearly $8 million of George Soros money has been donated to this group. Not only that, but he's got money all over the place in this. And
so you just directly linked George Soros to the June 14th protests.
Yes,
potentially to the LA riots. If there's a link there, but
because the Indivisible Project is behind the LA riots.
Oh yeah,
they are the ones who were helping fund that as well. Their hand has been in this for a while, and so one of the other points I wanted to make was, let's see, where is it? This is where it says, though Indivisible says it's fueled by smaller donations at the national level, it has received nearly $8 million from liberal billionaire George Soros Open Society foundations. So another way how they get around it is not George Soros isn't writing a check, it's all of his foundations. And the Open Society Foundation is George Soros, right?
Yeah, that's his organization.
A lot of this. And so here, I just went through, here's Open Society Foundations, their website. They have grants that you can apply for and get money for, right? Well, here's Indivisible Project, which is the same thing. And this is where the 8 million comes from, like a compilation of all of these, okay? What people might say, and I was going to anticipate this argument, is if you look at these years seem to have nothing to do with what's going on, right? They've just been getting hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years since 2018, okay? But I will point out that I went and I found the domain information on nokings.org. Here we have nokings.org, right? And this domain was purchased in 2018.
2018.
This has been planned for a long time. These are all the same people. So
that was during Trump's first term.
Yeah. So the website wasn't live. It only went live in May, from what I understand. I could be wrong on that, but it went live in May, and they're pretending like all of a sudden we have this No Kings movement.
This was a plan. if Trump won a second term in 2020, this was a plan to be implemented then, and now it's coming back around to first year in office in 2024 or 2025, and now they're implementing it. That's crazy.
They gave the green light. And here's some more open society.
Good job sleuthing, Doug. That's nuts. That's a crazy connection.
That is a really cool. That is a really interesting thing to be like that. This even just the name No Kings has been sitting out there since 2018. They're like, oh, we didn't have to do it because Trump didn't get reelected. Of course, I'm sure that the same organization was funding all kinds of riots and stuff during 2020.
Yeah, they've been active.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I was on here and I was scrubbing through the No Kings website and some of the partners that they have, right? And I was just basically taking their names and dropping them into the Open Society Foundations. And a lot of them you can't find in here, just to be totally clear. But a few of them, the bigger ones, like the Tides Foundation, which is just a sister of the Indivisible Project, right? It also has contributions from George Soros, aka the Open Society Foundation. And so I just pulled out the top three: Tides Foundation, Indivisible, and then the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union. This is another big one that has contributed to the No Kings movement. When you go over back to this page, and see right there, ACLU. And these guys also have received lots and lots of money from the George Soros Foundation. So you dig down to the root of this. This is pretty much a George Soros funded movement. And so my message to the American people is, if you are part of the No Kings movement, you are fighting exactly what you are working with exactly what you're told you're fighting against, which is the rich and powerful elite. Because what they're saying is, we're sick of the rich elite running everything. And you're doing it. You're part of that, because what you're doing is literally funded by the rich elite left class.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. This is not organic. This is not natural.
Crazy.
I just think it's interesting. You know what they call in politics someone who is influential behind the scenes and controls access to all these kinds of things? They're called a kingmaker.
Wow.
So it's a little ironic here. The political kingmaker. It's like no kings. Well, the kingmakers are doing a no kings movement so they can have the kings that they want, not the kings that the people want. But we don't want a king, but you understand the values and the influence that the people want.
Yeah.
It's crazy how they say grassroots, but it's not actually grassroots. It's been planned since 2018.
I think there's a lot of evidence to show. I mean, I do think I see a lot of centrist arguments for people in the middle who don't want to take a side are always like, well, the right has like their billionaires and the left has their billionaires and that sort of thing. But I think there's a lot of arguments to show that when it comes to the actual real right-wing movements and things happening on the right, that it's not funded and set up in this same kind of way that you see like a lot of these riots and sort of stuff happening on the left. And specifically, my biggest evidence for that is the fact that Donald Trump has been elected twice now, when even on the right-wing establishment, did not want Donald Trump to be elected.
Exactly.
And
there's plenty of on the right.
So who's the populist guy on the left? The populist guy on the left is Bernie Sanders. Well, Bernie Sanders was not allowed, even though he was like the most popular candidate on the left, especially among young people. Bernie Sanders was never allowed to become
they changed rules.
They just changed the rules. They just whatever they had to do to block him out, because the left establishment was like, no, we don't like you. You're not really, you're a little too populist. You're not really establishment enough. And so they blocked him out. Well, the right-wing establishment, and the rhinos and all that kind of stuff, they tried to do the same thing to Trump. It just didn't work. And so that's where it's part of where it's like, this is where I think the largest evidence that on the right, it's not actually just controlled by, well, whatever our billionaires say, where it trickles down and then we're doing that. It's like there's actually more of a, as I pointed out before, like a nation that's like, no, we have a real culture, we have a real identity, we're for order, we're for peace, this is what we want. And people that are doing that, we support them. Sounds great. That's what we want. We don't want these shadowy organizations and shadowy figures funding chaos in order to push these sort of globalist agendas, and it doesn't matter what fancy names they give it or what nice titles they give it. It's like like y'all said before, you see the fruit of it. The fruit of one is like order and peace and security, and the fruit of the other is like chaos and madness. And they're like, no, this isn't how you run a country. This isn't what we want. So that's sort of I hear like the centrist arguments coming out of like, well, the people on the right have you had Elon Musk donated a lot of money and stuff like that. And it's just like, well, this is the difference.